Major funding for these broadcasts is made possible by grants from New York Community Bank, Capital One Bank, Perfect Building Maintenance, Chase Commercial Term Lending, M&T Bank, Genova Burns. Additional support is provided by AKA Hotels, Corman Communities, Aerial Property Advisors, AVR Realty Company, Bank of America Merrill Lynch, Bank Leumi USA, Briarwood Organization, CBRE, Citizens Bank, Collins Building Services, Connect One Bank, CPEX Real Estate Services, Cushman & Wakefield, DDG, Dime Savings Bank of Williamsburg, Douglaston Development, Levine Builders, Fisher Brothers, First Nationwide Title Agency, Flushing Bank, Friedman, Handler Real Estate Organization, HAP Investments, Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Center at Syracuse University, Kilroy Architectural Windows, New York's Window Company, Madison Realty Capital, Matone Group, Mercantile Commerce Bank, Meridian Capital Group, New Banks, Optimum Window Manufacturing Corp., People's United Bank, Rosewood Realty Group, SJP Properties, Sterling National Bank, Stonehenge Partners, TD Bank, Terra CRG, The Continuum Company, The Moynihan Group, and These Friends.
Food. Everybody comes to New York because of the food, because of the restaurants, because of the chefs, the personalities. But the food is going international. And today, due to the help of my executive producer, co-host, Mr. Drew Naporand, he has brought together two leading chef owners of restaurants from around the world. My guest today, Jason Allerton, who is the head of the social group and also who runs the chef and owner, co-owner of the Clock Tower at the New Edition Hotel. The famous Michael White, who is a chef and owner and a co-owner of the Alta Maria Group. And last but not least, the man who's responsible for bringing these people, my friend Drew Naporand of the Marriott Group.
Tribeca Grill.
And Tribeca Grill, I know, it's like not talking about your children, okay? So how many restaurants?
Remind the viewers.
Okay, you were saying you have 9 restaurants?
18.
18 restaurants around the world. And how many restaurants do you have around the world?
Right around there, 17 in whichever you count.
Okay, so, in Judaism, 18 is a very good number.
It is, right?
It's high, it's life, a good life, so you have to double it to 36. So,
and 54, because
okay.
I'm bar mitzvah parties. I know all about it right now.
Okay, so where do you see the world today? How is it different operating in New York City as opposed to London or to different places in the world that you operate? What's it like?
I think, when you go into any new arena, so when we, for instance, when we transported from London to New York, it's coming in, being humble, speaking to the chefs, speaking to the restaurateurs, looking at concepts, what are working, why they're working, looking at people's eating habits, and taking all that on board before you even start to think about what the restaurant's going to look like, the menu, the pricing, and obviously for the location, and then just going about your business and being very professional and putting the customer first and getting about your stuff and taking your job seriously.
How hard is it to bring the right chefs, the right quality of people? I mean, you have Nobu here, you have Nobu in London, different places. How is it to transport the quality of fine dining? That's really the question of keeping fine dining around the world.
Of course.
And being in one of the toughest cities to operate, even though it's the best city to operate because there's so many people. But it's one of the hard.
I beg to differ with you there, but with London. But I tell you, first and foremost, you always have to have your core group with you. It would be impossible to go to another city such as Istanbul. There are more difficult cities, such as New York, for Jason and team to come over here. New York is lucky to have great products and great producers and such. Going and doing Italian food, for example, in Istanbul is a bit tougher to do. I would say it's a bit of the new frontier. There are There's new wealth there, and so therefore there are new restaurants, cooking schools are starting to develop.
But in the same back, you talk about Istanbul. I remember people saying that everybody at one time wanted to go to Dubai.
Mm-hmm.
And Dubai had a double problem. Besides the fact that you couldn't find the best quality of people, of labor over there, you couldn't have a liquor license.
Right.
So that had a big change on the situations. Over here, you have a different market. You have a different customer. But one time, my friend, Mr. Naporan, said, I'd say they were visitors. They're not visitors today. These are people who come to New York City. It's not the word visit.
Well, the word
and your partner, Mr. Starr, specifically a couple years ago, Philadelphia has a total different world. They're people who are locals.
Michael, the dirty word was tourist.
Correct.
That was the dirty word. But here's the key thing about branching out, especially going to outside of the United States. You need a strategic partner. You need a base that's already embedded in that country. So because unless you thoroughly research all the labor laws and, when Jason comes here, he says he's going to talk to the chefs and the restaurateurs. Why? He doesn't know where the best products are, the purveyors, the farmers. So that's doing his homework. But at the same time, it's a business. So in the case of Nobu, close to 20 years ago, we were offered the opportunity to be in a hotel, which, hotels kind of need food and beverage outlets. And they provided the infrastructure that we did not have, making that giant leap to go, overseas on the first endeavor. Now there are 32 Nobus around the world.
Now, so you come here, and you open up restaurants here, and you open up restaurants around the world. I hear about the purveyors. How do we find the right quality labor, and how do you retain good quality labor?
Here let's talk about New York right now specifically. Labor is a very, very big problem right now. Number one, ever since 2008, the downturn, we're now on an upswing. There are many, many new openings. At the same time, rents are going up, not just for commercial spaces, but also for our labor forces. And so we're starting to lose a lot of young people that first wanted to come to New York to work and to earn their chops. In the restaurant business, you do not have to go to either New York, Chicago, or San Francisco anymore. You can go to secondary cities where they're doing other things. So labor is really difficult. So you have to set yourself apart, offer different types of experiences, things, work environments, different things to create a buzz to attract people to
How
work.
many new restaurants have you opened up in New York over the last 12 months?
Over the last 12 months, just one, Vaucluse, 12,000 square feet, that's
Right,
on
but-
63rd and Park. But prior to that, I did 8 in 2.5 years.
That's right, which is very difficult. And you opened up, how many people do you have working in the restaurant today?
Globally,
Globally and in New York?
in New York, there's about 120 people working there in total.
And in the kitchen?
In the kitchen, there's about 55 cooks.
55 cooks.
Yeah.
It's important to point out that I think in both Michael and Jason's cases, what they didn't do is take one brand and just pop it in everywhere. Jason's got, 18 restaurants, all different names.
Yeah.
And Clock Tower is one of a kind because he's in that amazing Clock Tower building, where the hotel is housed. So he's taking a giant leap because, how are they supposed to know who he is in America? But because he has such a prominence in Europe, somebody like Steven Starr.
Right. I have 2 Michelin chefs here.
Right, exactly.
So, I have chefs who have Michelin stars, which is a high, and 3-star New York Times rating, which is both difficult situations.
Right, but you need a infrastructure. And so in Jason's case, obviously somebody recognized his talent and thought it would fit in New York. Plus, he maybe had ambitions to come to New York. I don't know
Right.
the process on which he came here. Michael, I've known for years, and Michael is just an amazing person because, he has an amazing restaurant named Maria. It's just packed every night, but Osteria Marini
but you bring
so they're not just one brand guys. That's my point.
Michael has Maria packed all the time. 25 years, our friend owned that location. It was dying. It just was failing. It wasn't kept up to par. And you have to keep modern. Okay, even though Nobu's 20 years old, okay, Tribeca's 25 years, you've kept it modern. You brought different type of foods. You've changed the menu. You've done a different market. Okay, you can't live there in this stagnant basis. Okay, and part of the problem, and it's their friends and they've been on the show, is the palm. Okay, steakhouses which have no. It's the same restaurant. It's 45 years later. It's different. People want different type of food. The palate has changed. Okay?
Well, these guys run chef-driven restaurants because they're chefs. They're chef restaurateurs, but they're chefs. The Palm obviously was a brand that was not reliant on a chef. It might have been reliant on somebody making a GG salad, throwing stuff together. So the chef thing is really important because, at the end of the day, a brand is a brand. Nobu is a brand, but there's a person named Nobu, and his repertoire of dishes are
and people
they can execute
you can have whatever name restaurants you have, but the brand is you.
Well,
It's the brand. No, it's the chef, Chef Michael, the Chef Jason that people know. Okay, I read the reviews since you've opened up. Look, you've had more fantastic reviews. People knew about you from the UK and other places, and they're there. People know about you for all the years and experiences, and you work for certain crazy people like Gordon Ramsay, and so different people over here. So the world changes. So now that you've been opening up 18, as you said, 12 restaurants over the last 24 months.
Eight in
the period of time.
2.5 years.
Okay. Would you, and the market is good in New York, would you look to open up another one? Or
for me personally, it's all about time. At the end of the day, I still like to cook. I'm a chef through and through, so a lot of my time is spent in the kitchen. And I would never say never because I've done that before and been burnt. So I would definitely. I love New York. Right? There's only a couple of cities in America what I get super excited about. New York is certainly very much at the top of that list, and Los Angeles being another one. So it's like would I open another restaurant in New York if the opportunity was correct and I had the time to manage it properly? Because for me, it's not just opening another restaurant and going, hey, great, and now I've got 19 restaurants, because it's just a number. It's how can I make sure that restaurant is at the top of its game for its lifespan?
So how do we? That's the question. How do we keep the restaurants at the top of the game in all of our locations? How do you?
Well, I personally invest in the way my company does it is the very top tier talent. I make them partners. And the way I do that is I don't always make them real estate partners, but I make them partners in the profitability of the restaurant. I pay them, very well, and if that restaurant hits its margins, they do very, very well out of it. And some of my guys have been with me for 3-4 years and made enough money to go off and start their own business, and that creates what that does then in the marketplace, like i.e. London. They go out, they speak, they talk. I've also done it for managers. My chief sommelier, she now has her own wine shop business, which we funded for her, which then provides us with all our wine for our wine list. So it's just spreading the love, as we call it, to make, and as that gets out there in the marketplace, a flood of talent come because they feel, well, if I can get my head down in this company for 5 or 6 years, who knows where I can be?
Sure. It's all about the people, talent, and encouraging those people, guiding them. We navigate with young people, young chefs here in New York City, managers, front of the house people. Having 7 restaurants here in Manhattan, I hit those 7 restaurants much more frequently than I go to Asia a couple of times a year, to go to Al Molo, Istanbul as well. It is all about the people. We couldn't do our jobs. I don't care whatever kind of business you're in.
So being international chefs, international owners, where are the opportunities? Okay, where are the opportunities today? I
Everywhere.
That you have locations, New Jersey.
Yes.
Okay. At one time, no one would say New Jersey has fine restaurants, okay? I mean, you may live there, but...
No, I don't anymore. Actually, I moved.
Okay, so...
But there are, listen, the rent structures that are in New Jersey, there are parking lots, the rent structures and the kind of food that we can produce for a bedroom community such as Burnsville, which is a suburb.
Right, but New Jersey also has the difficulty on the liquor licenses.
That is correct.
Okay.
For example, in Burnsville, there are 5 liquor licenses. A liquor license is close to $1 million now.
Yeah.
It's a key, it's an asset to the restaurant.
But in a similar manner, and I'm not sure what the deal is over there, in many of the fine hotels in New York, there's a transaction. Are you union?
No, non-union.
Okay, so fortunately, you're a non-union restaurant. Most hotels, that have restaurants, union hotels, really are not as profitable because the cost of labor is so much higher over here. So, when you're looking at different locations, if you were union, your prices would have to be much higher because you couldn't afford to be in business in New York City due to the union structure over there.
Correct.
So,
especially when you're constructing restaurants, if you're building something in Midtown, you're looking at 35% more just for union labor to construct that restaurant. So if you're getting $1 million free rent or a rent abatement, that $1 million just paid the 33% of your overrun.
So how do you grow? How do you grow an international brand? How do you grow a brand? How do you get to the next step? Okay,
The reality for Jason and Michael are that they proven, they have a track record. So the developers are going to come to them first, and if they don't come to them with a decent deal,
because it's no longer a vanity play. I mean, once you get to 17 or 18, it's like I or Jason or any of our peers, it's not about that. It's about being excited and passionate about what. But if the deal doesn't work, you just can't force it because there's no. I mean, you don't want to have to sit there and just nurse something along. It's on a gurney. So
the dance is always the same. They've got the Taj Mahal, and you should want to put your restaurant there. But again, they've diversified. They don't have a singular brand. Like Nobu is a singular brand that adapts to almost to any major city. It used to be the journalists would say, he's a chef. They're spreading themselves too thin. They can't have more than one restaurant. But thank God, the 20th Jean George restaurant in Miami Beach, for instance, is better than sometimes a one-off in Miami Beach. So the point is, they have a proven track record. They've developed their talent. They value the people that work for them.
They invest in our talent.
Yeah, and that's the only way. Like if he gets an opportunity, the first thing that should go through his mind is, who's going to cook there? Who's going to be the one? Who are the people going to be there? Before he says, yeah, I'm going to do this, and then...
one of the things that I've learned from my friend Drew is that a lot of chefs or a lot of owners believe that Las Vegas is a very important part of running a business. What's your thoughts about being in Las Vegas? Sin City, has more convention people.
I mean, I was in Las Vegas with Fiamma and Steve in 2002, 2003, and it was amazing. In the sense that there's the foot traffic. I mean, when you're filling the Grand Garden Arena with a boxing match and there's 17,000 people walking into it, and you're doing $100,000 evenings in a restaurant, it's pretty amazing. That's all changed. Number one, the amount of restaurants that have been built there and the amount of people that go to Vegas now has changed. Prices aren't the same. That was very much a boom time of Vegas when there were so many things going. So the atmosphere has changed, so we've been reluctant to step back into the arena, even though there are many, many deals.
What about the area, number of restaurants? I mean, Atlantic City was a failure. I mean, just in general, okay, not because of the operation over there. Then, there was the Foxwood idea, and the racetracks over there. Can you adapt fine dining to a, I don't want to call it a fast food concept.
Pedestrian.
To the pedestrian product?
Yeah, of course. I mean, because it's like, and we're all party to this. You can relate it to fashion. If I walk down the street, why am I prepared to pay 50% more for a jumper when it's from a brand like Saint Laurent or so forth and so forth? Because I know that the creative mind behind it is so much more superior to whatever other brand I might be looking at. And it's the same for food. I took my wife while I was living here when I opened the restaurant to Madison Square Gardens, and I went to John George's fast food joint there when we went to watch the basketball, because I wanted to check it out because I'm a big John George fan, and that's how it is.
Now, aren't you running?
Big mistake. You should have had the hamburger instead. No, one day you have to try that.
But isn't that true? John George is in the Garden. Okay,
right.
It's a different. He caters the sweets and some of the.
That's right.
It's a different type of thing.
But he has a chicken hot dog that Jason.
And
but what
great.
Jason's thinking is he's a food professional, and here's a colleague of ours who's doing something audacious. Actually, I just saw in South Beach, for the South Beach Food and Wine, he's doing some event with croquettes. I think they're calling it like a croqueteria or something.
But
it's very clever.
You remember
because,
a couple
you
years
put
ago,
anything
we
in those
did a
things.
show on fine restaurants go to arenas.
Yeah, we did that.
Right, we did a
Well, because
show
I also have the restaurant in Citi
Citi
Field,
Field.
which for the World Series will be closed because they're using it as a press room. So talk about missed opportunities. For 5 years I run that restaurant. So now that they reached the hallowed World Series, they shut us down. Can't make that up.
How important, okay, we understand that the press is very important.
Of course.
Okay, they can make or break. How important is it?
They used to be able to make and break. But go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean
No. Okay,
You used to have more power.
You used to have more power. Pardon me.
Yeah.
Just because of the fact that social media and the internet and the
exactly.
amount of content that needs to be filled from every type of food blog, so it's not just your major newspapers anymore. That's what I was.
No.
getting at.
So let's bring up an interesting
And it's about
point.
the client,
How
bottom line.
important is social media to you?
Oh, huge.
Huge.
I remember, when we launched Berners Tavern, this is when I really knew how important it was. When we launched Berners Tavern, we launched on the 18th of May, about 2.5 years ago. And it was 7 a.m. It was our first breakfast shift because we did the whole breakfast, lunch and dinner thing there. And I walked through the door at 6:45 to go and dress the brigade. And there was already, because I know all the bloggers in the UK, there was already 4 bloggers in a queue for breakfast. And it was like raining. It was miserable.
So
and I'm like,
it's the bloggers are important. How important is Facebook or Twitter? Instagram. I'd say Instagram is more important for your business.
Well, you're taking a visual.
You're taking a
image
visual of
of
the food. Okay.
Moment in time
Facebook.
restaurant.
I'm not certain that Facebook is something for a gourmet restaurant. It's not
They
really something.
connect from Instagram, though. I'm just teasing.
Right.
But no, you can. When you take an Instagram photo, they get uploaded if you connect it to Twitter and Facebook.
Michael, look what social media has done. A restaurant was very intimidating for a large group of people. You're going to spend a lot of money. You don't want to. It's just like going to a bad Broadway show. You don't want to waste your opportunity. Nowadays, you can go on the internet. You see pictures of the place. You see pictures of the food. You can see the menu. You can see the prices. It really takes an uneducated diner not to have a great experience. Actually, everything that's happened for good restaurants is to our benefit because we're happy to show our food. Happy to
food on TV has been.
It's awesome. I'm going to his restaurant for. He made an audacious move. He's known for being the Italian. He's an Italian chef, but he opened a French restaurant. How dare he? But I made a reservation. But even as a food professional, I'm not sure what he's serving. I'm not sure what his prices are. I'm not sure if my kids can eat the food there. So I went online. I did my homework. Same thing when I had my birthday at the Clock Tower. It was tremendous. I mean,
a great meal.
But you have to do your homework as a diner. It's like, remember Cy Sims? An educated consumer is our best customer.
So you're saying the same idea?
It's exactly the same.
What
And
about
that is the case too. People are traveling. People are New Yorkers are going to London and vice versa. And so therefore, it is no longer. There's no mummery or charades anymore. You have to give the goods. I mean, when I went to Clock Tower, I can remember what I had. I had, of all the things, I remember having this pie that was very much English, but it could have been French as well, very much like with foie gras and swab. It's burned into
now? What
your
about
image.
what about the cookbooks? How important are the cookbooks?
Cookbooks are number one. It's great for the chef because you can catalog. Chefs are notoriously not great at writing recipes. Obviously, the older I get, I'm writing things down now. But it's also very important for somebody to take something home with them if they so choose to take a memento or a souvenir home from the restaurant.
What's interesting, a couple of months ago, I did.
But you don't make money in books.
Okay, no. You do it. It's vanity.
Some people do. Not
Okay, you really don't make it. But I had a chef from Long Island. did his life story, and he wrote a different type of cookbook. He didn't write a cookbook. He wrote a book about his patrons. Mm-hmm. Because he used to write for a Long Island publication, and he talked about the strange patrons that came into his restaurant. And he's written 2 books on this.
I could write a New York Times bestseller, probably.
On your customers.
On my customers.
So,
Anthony Bourdain, last time I looked, Anthony Bourdain never wrote a cookbook, but it was his books that broke him through in terms of his being an authority.
Sure, and that's why a lot of people are interested about food, too.
But restaurants, cookbooks used to be very vital to the marketing. On my desk, Enrique Olvera Cosme has a Beautiful new cookbook. Michael Anthony, V for Vegetable.
No,
Beautiful new cookbook.
look, I think they have a value. It's the same manner as you bring up the
Not
food
as much
channel.
as social media,
Okay,
though.
social media is number one. Food Network, okay, I think is so important. I
it
mean,
is- it is-
people want to.
I don't know. I don't watch it anymore. Do you guys
the
watch
reason-
the Food
and the
Network?
I
reason-
watch Diners, Drivers, and Dives. Okay, see, I'm caught into this
Who
same
doesn't?
type of show.
But how many people go to bed with Guy Fieri? Really, you
I
think
watch
about
Kitchen
that.
Nightmares.
No, in the sense that, but even in New York, you would not have the demographic of people coming into Maria, I Fiore, if it wasn't for Emerald doing like the cooking in firehouses. I'm just saying, you know,
what-
it's brought
I
it
hate
down
say,
to
what
to
happened
the
to
public.
Emerald? Okay,
He's living the good life, bro.
Well, he was bought by Martha Stewart Living. He
But
cashed
what
out there.
has
He's
happened-
doing okay. He's
No,
all right.
is he-
He's on Good Morning America
Okay.
every day.
I mean, the TV,
Rachel Ray.
as a putting the marketing opportunities on TV to one side and just looking at it from a purely professional point of view, I have a love-hate relationship with it in the fact that it's great for marketing, it's fantastic to fill your seats in restaurants, but as a professional chef, it consumes a lot of time.
But listen, you know, before we do this, I go on YouTube, I punch in his name, and I saw clips of him, and you know what it did for me? It showed me his bedside manner. It showed me how he behaves. And how he
it's good.
cooks, and how and how he cooks, because
okay, but that
so
relates.
YouTube
but
is
that-
part of
but-
social
okay,
media.
but that relates to part of the question that I asked you a number of years ago. How many in your restaurants and your restaurants? How often are you outside of the kitchen visiting, or as I would say, touching the table?
Sometimes they're scared to come out of the kitchen. In his case, the kitchen's like downstairs.
No. So how often?
No, I go
for both
Where
of
the
you.
kitchen is there.
I mean, I don't do the old French thing with a big toe.
No, I'm not going to the French thing. I'm just talking. visiting.
Every seating, whether it's at 7 o'clock, I make the round, so I hit the dining room. But also at the same time, I travel between the restaurants as well. I might start my day. I start my day at one of the restaurants, and then I'll work that lunch service if I'm not doing something like this. And then this afternoon I have a tasting, but then this evening I'll be in a restaurant. But it's very, very, very important to go out into the dining room and to speak to people, because people want to have that connection with you. They want to
I think
know.
the personality is important. I mean, look, you are the personality at your restaurants. Okay, you may have chefs, but people know Drew. People know you, and people will know you in the New York market later on. They know you in your other restaurants. I
Yeah.
think that's a very important thing. What about expansion into the boroughs? Okay, you know, we spoke a couple of years ago. Have you gone to Brooklyn? Have you looked in the opportunities over there?
We've definitely looked, but have not made any moves right now, merely because the project that we have at 63rd and Park Avenue is just
And when did you open up 63rd and Park?
8 weeks ago. We started our eighth week this past Monday.
So it's no longer Park Avenue, winter, fall, spring, and summer.
It's Vaucluse.
It's Vaucluse.
Vaucluse.
So I'd like to say, needless to say, without the help of Mr. Naporant, we would never have such fine dining restaurants or such great chefs and individuals. And I'd like to thank Jason, Michael, and Drew, and I'll see you next week.